Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, our first session looking at Pelopidarum secunda, a play you have almost certainly never heard of. We do some really deeply obscure plays. This play hasn't, I think, technically been published except digitally. We've only found it on the digitally as part of the Records of Early English Drama collection. It has been transcribed, and thus we are able to read this play. It is, as I say, a deeply obscure text, and I don't think it's physically been published anywhere at all. I had no actual expectations we were going to be able to do this play. It was on my list, and then thanks to the wonderful people at Read, it is available online, and hopefully it's one we can recommend. It is, I say, called Pelopidarum secunda, which translates either as the second play about the House of Pelops, or it's talking about the next generation of Pelopsians. I've gone with Pelops, the next generation, because that amuses me. But opinions may vary. In fact, our opinion may vary by the time we finish this play. It's a long one, and we don't really know precisely when it's from. Dating is any time really in the second half of the 17th century. But who knows? Again, there might be some clues that we will stumble over that will help us grope blindly for some kind of a date. Reading today this exposition based largely on Greek tragedy, reading Clytemnestra and chorus number 4 is
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Hipparchus, Thyestes, Storge, chorus number 1 and Euribates is...
I am Greg. Long live the second generation.
Reading Agathia, Aegisthus, and chorus number 3 is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I just realized that's meant to be storgi, which is like love or like affection. Sorry, it took me long enough because I hadn't seen it on paper, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I say paper, it's a digital copy. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
No, just good things. Storge, I'm liking it. Reading Atreus or Atreus, and chorus number 2 and 5 is...
Hi, I'm Tom from Brighton.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading... There are some stage directions, so I will be able to read some of those. Just a general note to say this has been lightly tidied up for reading, but is broadly as transcribed, so there may be some textual things for people to trip over. There are some lines for the readers, just to warn you ahead. Some lines have been crossed through or underlined. Just read them as they are. We can discuss why that is further along. And I say, we'll find out how this manuscript text stands up today. So, also just to warn you that there might be some bits that are in the wrong order as well, because I say, almost no work's been done on this, so you might randomly be confused. You might not. It might all be fine. I don't know yet. So, without further ado, what is probably Act 1, Scene 1, and the entrance of Hipparchus.
See here, revenge devours invention, and will that doth forsake dry aged brain, stays only there to plot more wickedness. As tigers whom the desert else would serve, stay only there waiting for the weary blood of some poor straying helpless travellers. Old Atreus, haunted by his brother's ghost, now devised to send Europa to him, thinking he comes but for Europa's love, whom though he long time have imprisoned, warned by many her conspiracies, which he have sought to learn out of her grief, yet neither he nor grief nor time can tame her, but as pain grows, she overgroweth pain, and torments come so short of having power to search her obstinacy to the bottom, that she confutes this cruelty with silence, and scorns to cast away a word on grief. Thus, standing mute, she more inflames the rage of Atreus, whose whole life is nothing else but a contriving of his kindred's deaths. And where Europa lies in prison, there lies one Dipsas, an old sorceress, to have exiled dead Thyestes' ghost, and undershow to have her tortured by Clytemnestra and her maid's intents, to bring Europa to be strangled. Silence, he saith, and cunning of her eyes and Clytemnestra's fond credulity, joined with desire of hearing which his news, shall be his means. But how and what he mean, I fear my woeful eyes too soon will see. But to obey him, that's enough for me. Now must I fetch the most unhappy queen, to whom such torments are familiar. She doth scarce salute them with a sigh. This silence is but a preamble to death, as though she should have none that spends in her breath. Could none but Clytemnestra serve the turn, a queen upon a queen to execute so blind a death, and such a stealing end that closeth up the passage of the thoughts and stifleth up the last of sorrow's pangs. A cousin and a queen to kill in jest, most cruel jest. A cousin and a queen triumph not Atreus, nor deride thou heaven, grafting unkindness upon nature's stock. Nature and heaven ill can brook a mock.
He stayeth.
Well, I'll fetch her. Servants must not be disputers. Thus honest minds sin under wicked tutors.
Exit. We have notes, and the stage directions, as ever, might live in different place. But the ghost appeareth, saith nothing, and vanisheth away. Something to unpack, perhaps, in a moment. We'll just take a little pause on this opening little element of this. I am assuming the ghost. But we say we have these little stage directions. I don't know where they live. He stayeth, the ghost appeareth, saith nothing, and vanisheth away. They're quite difficult to do simultaneously. Greg,
that feels a real mess. I felt like it's either written really badly or lines are muddled up. Because there's times where I felt like I was going somewhere, and the next sentence or even the next word utterly threw me. I don't know why. I can't see I don't know. I might be wrong, but just really, you said that sentences or things might be in the wrong place. I just didn't feel like that made sense to me. Sorry.
That's all right. I thought it had a certain rhythm to it. I thought, or the way you did that, and it could help with having some punctuation, which most of it doesn't.
It doesn't help that full stops are in the middle of sentences, which also didn't, maybe lost me completely. No, I don't know. I think there's a few muddled up bits in there, but it's a really nice speech. There's some really great images. Especially as we get into that section about Clytemnestra. Silence, he saith, and cunning of our eyes, and Clytemnestra's fond credulity. I mean, that was a fabulous line. But yeah, no, interesting.
Yeah, this idea that there's a ghost lingering around somewhere here as well, and listening or something. I don't quite know what's going on there. Rachael.
I forget the name of the ghost, but the beginning of doesn't the Spanish tragedy, I think we have the ghost of the prince or whatever he was from the first play show up. And also do we know if there's any sort of like record of play history that this was put on, or
no?
Maybe?
We don't. We've got a 50-year area of where it could have been written / copied. We're fairly certain, I think, that we've got an idea where it was performed, Winchester College, so it's perhaps student drama, but otherwise we don't really know anything. It's a bit of a mystery. I think we should get some more evidence before we speculate any further. Let's see if there's it's more or less tidy as we go. Act 1, Scene 1, Atreus, Clytemnestra, and Agathia.
And think you Dipsys is the cause our uncle's ghost can find no rest in death, the rest of all things, that he haunts the court and brings the terrors of that lower world to trouble life, for hate of which he sought a refuge in the mouth of hell itself? Can Dipsys make him maugre his own mind, and maugre laws of that inferior realm return unwelcome to himself and us?
Why think you Dispus is no sorceress?
Yes, Father, Dipsys is a sorceress.
And cannot witches terrify the mean and make her paler for fear, that from her globe descendeth down no other influence to them that do behold her fate, but fear? Cannot they turn the river's course with charms, and make the springs to wander at return of those, their drops that never were expected to come again, and choke their mother's throat? Cannot they sprinkle poison on the ground, that by their words is double in contagion, wither whole countries, scorching Flora's face, showing Dame Tellus naked to the sun, that in compasses shines to keep her warm? Cannot they rise up whirlwinds in the air, earthquakes on land, and strain tempests on the sea? And tear you graves, and join half-rotten bones, and make those legs, whose sinews are consumed, carry abroad old carcasses, and thread the measure of the world's astonishment. 'Tis Thessaly so near, and are the works but ordinary works in Thessaly? And doubt you too, but Disparus brought from thence twice as much malice as the skill she brought, and both too much to raise Thespius up, breathing the brimstone of dark Acron, blasting the walls throughout our palaces.
I hardly could believe that womankind could hardened be to such prodigiousness, a woman which death's terrors not dismayed. The least fear of life makes us afraid.
Fie on that woman, for she's a monster. No woman that attempts such wickedness, no torture could suffice to recompense the bold adventure of so great offense.
She spits.
Fie, I could be executioner myself to make an end of such a hag, whose life is nothing but a shame compact of such a body joined to such a soul.
Why, maid, if your courage be so good, then Clytemnestra's heart can serve her to it. Small torture, make like Disparus tells you all, though that she stand mute a while for stubbornness. But if the rumor should be spread abroad, then might it chance to breed some innovation. The people have her skilled in admiration. We three may sift out all, and shortly thus she shall be sent from hither out of prison, and I will tie a cord about her brows. You two shall put each end until it smart, and smarting wring out all her secret heart. Perhaps at first she persists a while, but pain increasing will force confession.
Alas, how shall my pitying eyes endure to see her brows swell, pinched with the cord?
I'll hide her face.
And yet the sight is cruel.
Then wink the while.
Your Majesty may wink, and so will I. This but a little time, and though a few queens have entered to such action, yet it is worth the pains to satisfy your royal mind that long time hath desired to know the truth of these enchantments for us, besides yourself. And all the court are free from dreadful haunt of this unquiet ghost, if Dipsas be constrained to desist her practices and evil and wicked conjurations.
I have a stone that Zoroaster gave unto a coming queen of Syria, put in a ring, that Jason brought from Greece, the dearest of the wise Medea's jewels, a stone of strange effect, amongst the rest, to keep the bearer free from all enchantments, from any hurt that Dipsys' skill can do.
Agathia.
It says Atreus is the next one.
No, I
No.
have a chord.
I have
Okay.
a call.
Oh, sorry, I have a chord, yes. Sorry. I skipped that line. I have a chord that Calchas left behind him, hastening onto the Trojan expedition with which he used to bind his sacrifices. This cord shall serve to torture Dipsas' head, and this is all that shall preserve me safe from any hurt that Dipsas' skill can do.
Gramercy, wench. Now there's a woman's heart. I doubt not but that thou will do thy part.
And exeunt Clytemnestra and Agathia.
This is gallant. Here is such revenge on Clytemnestra and Europa both. For Clytemnestra pitied her durance and fed her spiteful obstinacy with secret comfort. What that else had relented. But see, now Clytemnestra's fingers itch to torture her, mistaken for a witch, if they dare pull. And that the cord hold fast, then once a king may show a wriggling cast.
Okay, before we go forward, we'll just pause there. So when you have a ghost, go and scapegoat the local moderate sorceress, and then not only arrange the torture that you're going to do there, but also just go through the issues of, well, we need to do the torturing. Do I have to watch? Can I just close my eyes? How do we protect herself against her sorcery and things? This is quite dark. This is dark stuff, especially as Atreus here is talking about that there's going to be something may occur here. There might be a bit of a switcheroo going on in a moment. So this is all quite complicated stuff. It does feel like we've just leapt in midstream. I don't know. Was the ghost at the beginning enough to sort of settle us down into stuff? We haven't met the ghost yet, but I'm sure. Well, in theory, he's been on. Hasn't said anything yet. Rachael.
I don't know. It reminds me. I mean, it said that, like, the way it sounds to my modern ears is like she's gonna get her brows threaded. But also, it seems like to have Clytemnestra there. It seems like It very much seems so much like the Spanish tragedy, like the bringing on the mask to, all these masks that we have in these things. Because do we have it in the Faun too? I don't remember. Like all these random masks where there's some revelation to be had. That, it seems also like some sort of interrogation of her, even though she's not the one that's going to be physically tortured.
Yeah, there's definitely a switcheroo going on here, and all this stuff about covering up, so that you can't see who it is that you're about to torture. So there's a trick in play. I'm not sure how clearly that, even with Atreus' speech, that how clear that's going on. It does again. I still feel like we've entered this mid flow, which leads us more to this is the second part of something rather than this is about a generation specifically. Other thoughts from the room? I enjoyed that scene in all its tortury preparationness. I thought there's something really dark and evil going on here and interesting. Tom, then Eric.
Yeah, he seemed to relish the upcoming torture. It was almost inquisitional. Once you've got a scapegoat, torture it mercilessly to prove that you're right and they're wrong, but and don't spare the horses type of thing. So very, very very cold, very, as you say, very dark.
Mm. But the way that Clytemnestra is sort of going, oh, we need to do it, but I don't want to see it. So there's something really interesting going on there about what they're doing here and how it works. Eric, then Rachel again.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the whole I have a stone, I have a cord. I mean, I can understand the cord, but then the stone is kind of...
I think it's a charm to stop the witch from...
Like an amulet type thing, which
Yeah,
is
it's
kind of
protection.
ironic, seeing as she's a witch, and yeah, I mean, using a charm against a witch is kind of... Anyway, yeah, circular.
Well, I think irony. There's a lovely irony in Clytemnestra's line. I hardly could believe that womankind could hardened be to such prodigiousness. And I'm sort of going, well, we ain't seen nothing yet from you. I think a little later on in the story, some prodigiousness may occur. Yeah, just a tad. Rachel.
I only know Clytemnestra as, like, I think the wife of Agamemnon in mythology.
Yep.
So this is I'm kind of confused with Atreus here and what Atreus's relationship is to Europa. If I was sitting in an audience, because this is my first time and everybody's first time reading this too, that there needs to be if this is to be staged, I think there needs to be some insertion as to the relationship between Atreus and Europa and why he or she feels the need to get revenge on Clytemnestra for the death of Europa.
Well, I say Europa isn't dead yet. So let me explain the family tree, because I think it's fair to make this clear. So the ghost, I'm assuming at this stage, is Thyestes, who is the brother of Atreus. So there's a dead guy wandering around who is Atreus's brother. And Atreus is Agamemnon's father, so it's Clytemnestra's sort of father-in-law. So I'm just getting it all together. Europa is Atreus's wife, and in this scene, literally in the next stage direction, Europa is going to be brought on stage, made to look like the witch that they're going to torture. For reasons. So he's going to use his daughter-in-law to torture his wife. I think that's what's going on. It's nice. It's nice. It's nice. Family politics stuff. I'm not quite sure the reason for all of this, because this isn't the part of the story I'm really familiar with. It's the next bit I know what's going on. I really do feel like we've stepped right in the middle of something, and I don't quite understand why. But yeah. So, it's going to be torturing her mother-in-law, basically. That's what's going on here. That's what's about to happen. So, slight spoiler for what's about to happen, but I think we needed to work through that to understand. I know what's happening. I'm not sure why it's happening, but Thyestes' ghost is probably wandering around dropping snakes and making people do mad things. That's probably what's going on here. We will hear from Thyestes a little later on, so you'll get a bit of data on what's going on. But we've met him because he's been wandering around. So let's read on. Let's get a little bit more data. I'm enjoying it, even if I'm not quite sure what's going on. It is like watching a mid-season episode of a soap opera and just going, I've no idea what's going on, but it's sort of compelling. Anyway, enter Hipparchus, who we met earlier. It's a courtier of some description that wasn't made clear earlier. Leading Europa along in witches' weeds, her face covered.
Pardon, dear sovereign, me poor instrument and disloyal in obedience. The king commands me thus to bring you clothed as masked as I think, to move with shame your tongue at lest, to utter discontent. But now you're unto his presence come.
And the masked Europa makes signs.
Why, how now, minion? What, no words but mum? 'Tis you that make Thyestes trouble us.
And she makes signs.
Hipparchus, set her here and bind her fast.
He binds her in a chain. She makes signs with her head.
So this silence must come to an end.
Enter Clytemnestra Agathia with a cord tugging.
Beshrew me, but this cord will pinch her shrewdly. But who can pity one that lives so lewdly?
Yonder she sits, tied ready for the purpose.
Come, my sweet beauties, we will make short work on what a rabble of vile exorcisms vexed the dead, and prisoning the live.
She makes more signs.
Will that short cord wring out this lewd brain? These antics all will be forgot with pain.
Good father, if she will without all pain, let her make answer unto my demands. Say, woman, how raised you Thyestes' ghost?
She makes signs. Atreus takes the cord and knits it about her head.
Oh, stay, good father, she provides to speak, uncover her face.
No, daughter, to take heed. Know you not, witches' eyes are venomous.
If she were angered thoroughly, she would find the easy means through a mask to scold her mind.
Nay, then in truth you put us to some pains.
Nay, let her, shortly she shall find her hinds. Paint.
Take you this end, and maid, take you this other.
I would not spare her if she were my mother.
But turn away your faces whilst you pull, for women's hearts are stouter than their eyes.
They turn. He slips the cord down to her throat.
The cord is slack, pull hard. Now hark, she cries, Fie, you torch her not, pull harder.
Speaks she not yet?
Not yet, she jests at it. Nay, but again, and pull one lusty fit.
Beshrew me, then, if I pull any more, for this hard tugging makes my fingers sore.
He uncovers her face.
Then see how she doth laugh you both to scorn.
Now out, alas, that ever I was born, the queen Europa strangled, wretched I, that killed my queen. Why stay I for to die? And is she dead? I will not so forsake her. This knife shall make my way to overtake her.
And Agathia kills herself.
But vile wretch, live I to crave pardon of her that now is in another world?
She draws her knife.
Mother, dear mother, stay. I come, to crave forgiveness in Elysium.
So these matters fall out wondrous well. Thyestes shall have company to hell.
The ghost ariseth at this moment. Clytemnestra lets fall her knife. All fly in, and Thyestes' ghost speaks. Or will when unmuted.
Leaving the kingdom of infernal Jove, loosed from the deep dark cave of Tartarus, lo, here Thyestes is a damned ghost, hated on earth and hating Pluto's court. The one I fly for torment's great excess, the other with my sight I terrify. Lo, here the house wherein my father dwelt, nay, where my brother dwells, lo, here he howls. This sight affrights my troubled mind, makes me all to quake with trembling fear. This is that ancient house of Pelops' stock. Here the Pelasgian kings with glory crowned begin their reign. Here sit the stately troops of purple-clothed rulers in their pride. Here are the courts, here are the banquets kept. Return Thyestes from this hateful place, more hateful than the cursed lake of Styx, whereas the triple-headed mastiff lies with watchful eyes to keep the gates of hell, where foul Ixion Juno's infamy is racked in torments on a restless wheel, where Sisyphus, with never-ceasing pain, doth roll on heavy stone, which being rolled from foot to top, from top to foot returns, where Titius, his unconsumed heart, is torn by greedy vulture's bloody beak, where Tantalus, our grandsire, punished with fiery thirst in midst of waters stands, and yet his thirst with waters cannot quench. This doleful pain in hell he suffereth for entertaining in that bloody feast the sin-revenging powers of the heavens. But oh, that aged, miserable man, how little is his sin compared to ours. If his and others' faults were with mine tried, both his and theirs and hell were justified. Consider all that for their wickedness have been condemned to eternal pain by Minos, Aegisthus, and Radamant. I shall them all in wickedness surpass, and yet surpassed, and by his brother's guilt. By brother's guilt the sin came back from such a cruel fact. What pains may make the world a recompense for altering of their light by my offence. Yet was not spiteful fortune satisfied, but me commanded by yet a greater guilt, most basely to defile my daughter's bed. Hence hath she now by me a child conceived. O wicked child, a child that must be like his guilty father in his guiltiness. Nature is turned back, for so the fates decree, and stubborn nature must obey. O monstrous villainy, the nephew calls his grandsire father, and his grandsire holds his nephew for his son. And the daughter terms her father's spouse, and counts the night as day. Thus fortune hath me used now at length. She smiles on me with favourable eyes, looks wearied with sorrows and tormenting pains, the King of kings and chiefest lord of Greece, brave Agamemnon, under whose conduct so many thousand men to Troy repaired, is now returning to his destiny, to end his days by falsehood of his wife. And damn it, Aegisthus, foul adulterer, now this wicked house with blood shall swim. I see the naked glittering swords, the shirt, the fatal sword of his fasty sight, keen hatchets, poignant spears, and bloody bills prepared ready for Atreus' death. Now, at this door, all villains do wail, false treachery and bloody butcherings. Prepare thy feast, Aegisthus, now it comes, from whence thy birth was by the fates decreed. Why shouldst thou be ashamed of villainies? The very birth all shamefastness defies. Why doth impious counsel stay thy hands? Why dost thou ask advice and vex thy mind? 'Tis but to put thee further away from excuse. It must be done, and since the fates decree it, thy fault's the greater that thou dost foresee it. Why wouldst thou know, if that beseemeth thee, thy mother it beseemeth look on her? Doubt'st thou of Clytemnestra's willingness? Think'st thou the service of Euribates' death will make her dulled heart incapable of love secure and wanton motions? Thou knowest she eyes thee and she laughs on thee. Yet thou knowest more that hell and I and thou may joy of but the earth for shame not speak of. I sprinkled her with Lethe's drops long since. I left her no remembrance, but they love. But what she minds all suitable to Lethe and to hell damnable. But why do not the stars depart from heaven, but stay the chariot of the brightest sun? Depart, Thyestes, give the earth her light. Was never wretch brought to sin, to hell before, unburdening earth and loading hell with more.
And off Thyestes jolly well goes. So that was horrific. We have, this poor woman brought on. She can't speak. She's constantly making signs while they strangle her to death. Clytemnestra getting to play another of the irony cards. I would not spare her if she were my mother. Or in this case, mother-in-law. And upon discovery, Atreus just goes, ta-da! And Agathia immediately kills herself. Clytemnestra would kill herself, plans to. Atreus is quite keen on this, but the ghost interrupts and goes, no, we've got other plans for future stuff. This is a messed up family. Expect more messed up things to happen. Yeah. Sort of fun in an evil way. Eric.
Yeah, the way it's written, it reminded me a lot of Gorlois from like Misfortunes of Arthur, where it's just inserted like sort of to tell you why things are becoming worse rather than, sort of, yeah, just like revenge and death and hell. And yeah.
Oh, it's not that dissimilar in tone and style to things like that, or even further down, like Gismund of Salern, the earlier version of that. This is very similar to. I mean, there are lots of little textual problems, but I actually think they are mostly little textual problems. I think there's probably lots of minor errors, and I say the absence of punctuation is making things difficult, and some of the stage directions are slightly out of sync. But yeah, it does have that sort of blood and guts student-y vibe to all of it, doesn't it? I mean, all the way through, it's just really luxuriating in all this stuff. Date-wise, I'm definitely starting to put it post translations of Seneca, and I mean, its source material is more Greek than Latin, but all of this stuff, I'm also inclined to pull it after Spanish tragedy. But, it's still got quite a wide potential dating range. Thoughts on the room about this cheerful, shall we say, opening gambit? I think it's fair to say we move in a slightly different direction from this point onwards.
I'm just going to say I love Thyestes' speech.
I thought you might.
I mean, what a set of images. And actually, having read that one, I revised my feelings about that first speech. I think the way that this guy writes, persons writes.
It could be persons, especially if it's student, then it may be split by many hands.
Actually, they just have very complicated speech structures and very complicated thought patterns. But yes, I'm going to hold a palm out for doing a second reading of this once the punctuation's solved, because there are times when I really, as much as we can, put the full stops in the right places for a start, because I was really finding some times where I went, that's part of the last sentence and I've just read it as though it's a new one. But yeah, I mean, for example, someone just said the three-headed mastiff, which was a lovely description of Cerberus. Sort of putting poor Kerberos almost down to the family pet.
It's a rescue dog.
Yeah.
Definitely a rescue. Yeah, I think with this one, it's kind of thing of solving the punctuation. It's the kind of one where I'm going. I almost want to just say to individuals, look, you go away, take a week, figure out your own punctuation, and then we'll discuss and negotiate, rather than do it by fiat, because I say we haven't really got any starting point for this, and I think we need to do it in a collegiate fashion. Rachael.
No, it was a comment on that punctuation, because it's the I'm looking at the thing that comes directly after, and it's like this for the directly after what we just did, and then some of the other stuff that we did. But there's just these long bouts without any punctuation, and then you have so much in one section all of a sudden. That, and I'm just.
But that
I'm
may just be a
to...
transmission error. There's no guarantee if that's fully authorial.
Okay.
I'd work in the assumption there is no punctuation, and you have a random stab in the dark as to when you should breathe, and pause. And the script does keep motioning. It has weird stage directions like here, stay, here, stay. Does that mean pause? Does that mean you don't leave? What does here, stay mean? Because it turns up a lot. So I'm curious about that. In fact, I'm going to start doing some reading around that. Other thoughts in the room? Rachael?
Maybe it's their mark. Maybe it wants them on like a certain, I don't know, just another option.
I like that. I don't think we've got any notation of people hitting marks, but maybe that was such a thing. That's an interesting idea. Any other thoughts on the text so far? Or would you like to move into the next area of interest? Let's move into the next area of interest. Let's see where this is going. So, as labelled here, Act 1, Scene 4, and with lots of people enter: Clytemnestra, Storge, Philopatrus, various people who I don't think actually say a damn thing, so I'm not even going to bother attempt to read them out. We have basically two people who actually say things and some other people about them: Clytemnestra and Storge.
What heart could hate so sweet a gentleman, and what is Agamemnon unto him? He loves me as if no such husband were. He loves me, yea, he loves me, I dare swear. Sweet, sweet Aegisthus, shall I leave thy love to mend the tales of babbling multitude that never knew what faithful love did mean? I will embrace thy conversation, thy looks, thy smiles, thy speech, thy gait, thy fashion of courting, and thy truest secrecy, and what besides no woman knows but I. Aegisthus is a morsel worth the catching. He is unmarried, but I marred in matching. Can any woman think her not beholding to him that loves her married or unmarried? For all is one, so it be closely carried. And yet what need I smother so clear a fire? Only that husband provides our desire, to let my love have uncontrolled resort, to shut out all suspicion from our sport. To live with him, to be Aegisthus' wife, is 10 times worth an Agamemnon's life. Why then dispatch it, Clytemnestra.
Here stay. So stepping farther a little, and pausing beginneth as after.
What, Clytemnestra, wilt thou now repent, and seek good counsel when 'tis all too late? Dost thou desire to live in virtue's court? Behold, her gates with bars of gold are shut. To enter in it is impossible. Whilom they opened were when as thou mightst in glory shine of matron's chastity, a loyal queen unto a loving king. Now hast thou lost thy undefiled praise of virtue and unspotted honesty. which being gone will not return again. Then let the bridle loose, and careless run. The steep downhill to sinful wickedness. By many sins the way of sin is safe. Try, Clytemnestra, what thou canst perform by sly deceits of woman's treachery. Let none be more perfidious than thyself, none more unpatient and unlawful love. Let not a stepdame brag of cruelty, nor let the Frasian maid her travails tell, when she with Jason fled to Sicily, do then in poison and in blood delight. Fly with Aegisthus from thy country's soil, and leave thy hateful husband desolate. But why do I these lesser things recount? A close conveyance of my secret love, a willful exile and a privy flight. Those things beseem my sister Helena, a fouler vice must be my victory.
O gentle queen of Greece and leader's child, what secret fire is kindled in your breast? Why doth thy mind, thus void of reason's rule, swell with the raging of thy passions? Speak, gentle queen. Let reason be thy guide. If not, let time be thy physician, who often cures what reason cannot heal.
My griefs are greater than thy skill may ease. Great flames of fire do scorch my pensive heart. Grief mixed with fear doth prick me unto rage. Envy my heart torments, and burning love makes me to yield to her infamous yoke. All these and more have long besieged shame, and conquered it, yet doth it still rebel. I doubt which of them I should obey, am daily tossed in uncertainty, and look as when the waves and winds do fight, the pilot lets his ship at random ride. So reason of my mind hath lost the stern, and whether grief or anger shall me drive, thither blind chance shall bend my wandering course. The wandering mind doth best on chance depend.
Blind is the Bayard that hath chance for guide.
But chance at worst cannot far farther slide.
Thy chance is good, none shall thy fault descry.
Is by the light of my nobility.
Why dost thou then repent and sin again?
To limit sin is labor spent in vain.
Increase of sin more torment doth procure.
But fire and sword have often done a cure.
Now at the first doth try extremities.
The steepest way is best in miseries.
Oh, yet call to mind thy loving husband's name.
10 years a widow, and respect the same.
Yet call to mind thou hast a child by him.
You mean the child he did in marriage give to Peleus' son, O faithful husband's love.
Thus did thy noble lord for country's sake, and with her blood 1,000 ships did save.
Fie, I am ashamed to think of it. Shall Clytemnestra, daughter unto Jove, bring forth for Greece a purging sacrifice? I never shall forget that marriage day, a marriage fit for on of Pelops' race, when as the father by the altars stood, as if he had performed the nuptial rites. Then Calchas trembled at his proper words, and saw and was affrighted at the sight, the sudden motion of the senseless stones.
So many ships should not have perished.
Therefore 1,000 ships from Aulis loosed, with heavy wrath of the revenging gods. Such wickedness he port could not abide, but belched them forth into the raging seas. Thus did he first begin the unwaged war. Thus did he wage it, thus he did it end. For first when he should Troy with sulfur burn, taken by her whom he did in war take, he burnt himself in scorching flames of love. Then were Achilles' threats of little force, and Calchas' oracles were all contemned, which he to do me harm so much esteemed. No pity of so many dreadful deaths. A valiant man could move his hardened heart, not he his love for 20,000 lives. Husbands can love abroad and cannot wives. Aegisthus is no captive, but is free, descended of as good a house as he. Or once persuade him leave his captive love, conquered without a foe he lives in sloth. In Venus' court and not in Mars his camp, and least he should not have a concubine to dally with he took away by wrong. The captive Briseis from the lawful lord, Cassandra do I fear with him shall come. Oh, infamy that never shall decay, the conqueror himself is conquered. Go to them. Clytemnestra, now prepare thyself, the war thou undertakest is great. Blood and revenge must be thy soldiers. How long wilt thou defer thy wrath? Till Phrygian dames have got thy empery? I serve those queens in silence stand and mute, whilst they embracing, kissing, dallying sit. Yea, Clytemnestra, if thou canst, 'tis fit. Nay, I will rather than take that disgrace, tear out his eyes and fling them in her face. And why doth pity of thy daughters bid, or of thy sons, so like as hateful sin? No, their miseries are yet to come. Then hast thee, Clytemnestra, lo, she comes. Who shall a stepdame to thy daughter be? Let thy sword through thine own bowels glide. If otherwise thou canst not have thy will, mingle his blood with thine and be thy death. Make passage for his soul and end his life. No pain it is to die when thou shalt so, whose death thou didst desire shall die with thee.
Bridle, O queen, thy stubborn passions, and quench the flames of this thy kindled rage. Consider well and look before thou leap. Europe's revenged, and the conqueror of fruitful Asia is returning home, bringing the captive dames of Phrygia. All the riches of proud Pergamus, and though that he so well deserved has, yet foolishly thou seekest to spoil his blood, whom neither sword of Tethys' charmed son, nor bloody Ajax spear could ever hurt, nor Hector only stay of Trojan war, nor never missing shafts of Paris wound, nor Xanthus filled with murderous carcasses, nor purple Simois with the Trojan blood, nor Cygnus' Neptune's son, nor Rhesus falls, nor yet the warlike trooper Thermodon could with his blood glut their victorious hands. Him wouldst thou, foolish Clytemnestra, slay and fill the altars with this villainy. Let not the Phrygian captives see that joy a greater harm in Greece to Greece than Troy. And thinkest thou Greece that have revenged on wrong will suffer this, or call to mind their rage they used at Troy, and learn to fear their wrath? Restrain with reason thy affections, and rule on the thoughts of thy unbridled mind.
Enter Aegisthus.
The time is come. My mind had always feared the utter ruin of my happiness. Fly not, Aegisthus. Cast not down the shield before thou knowest the forces of thy foe. Suppose the deaths have sworn to thy death and daily seek for thy destruction. Why, yield thy head unto their cruelty, and think there cannot be so great a pain which thou with willing courage should not bear.
To die, Aegisthus, 'tis no pain for thee, whose wicked life bids thee expect no less.
But, gentle queen, partaker of my fear, if thou wilt help, thy husband shall restore the blood he caused of thy daughter spilt.
And says, here stay.
Why doth my Clytemnestra look so pale?
Here stay.
Speak, gentle love, what means this sudden fear?
Thy words, Aegisthus, make me look so pale, and strike great horror in my troubled mind. Love of my husband hath the victory, and bids me turn away from wickedness. But let us both return to virtue's court, a court which we till death should never leave. Let me repair again my broken faith, and repossess a loyal matron's praise. 'Tis ne'er too late to tread on virtue's path, and who repents is almost innocent.
From whence proceeds these foolish passions? How canst thou hope thy husband can thee love, whom though there were no other cause to fear, yet prosperous fortune maketh arrogant in haughty pride and proud disdainfulness he went to destroy. How will he then return, puffed up with glory of victory? No doubt he thinks the name of king too base, and soars aloft in cruel tyranny. Behold, how many concubines are brought, whom he with precious jewels will adorn, to feed his wanton eye and please his lust and foul disgrace of loathed Tyndarus. Cassandra shall have all things at her will, and be commandress of the Mycene dames. Such grace she findeth in his lustful eyes, and foul disgrace of loathful Tyndarus. And shall a stranger then possess the crown, and shall the daughter of the highest Jove be so condemned by her disloyal king? And canst thou then put up this injury, and not revenge so great disloyalty? Why can there be a greater loss than this, to be disgraced by a concubine? Thou art a queen. I know canst not brook to have a fellow of thy diadem, much less to have a fellow of thy bed.
Alas, why shouldst thou have thus me headlong drive? Why shouldst thou kindle those same flames of rage, which long ago I have extinguished? What if my husband, being conqueror, doth somewhat fancy Phrygia's lovely dames? I never should as wife be discontent, nor yet as mistress burn in wrathful ire. For these who sit upon a royal throne must not be used as the baser sort. Great places such small faults do mitigate. Their pleasure is but complement of state. Besides, I call to mind mine own offense, and then I cannot choose but pardon him, for he must pardon who will pardon have.
'Tis true indeed. But as it seems you know not tyrants' use, upright in us, but partial in themselves, who think their power is never at the full, till they may do what other may not think. They sway us with oppression still increasing, lest we should deem their power by their ceasing. And will you then trust to his clemency?
I must, Aegisthus. Duty bids me so. My guilty conscience daily threatens me, and in my nightly rest unquiet dreams of my offense torment my troubled mind.
Tush, follow my advice and make away the author of thy fear, and then no doubt thou shalt ever be vexed. And then no doubt thou never shall be vexed with foolish dreams.
Aegisthus, sun hath made thee blind. Thou canst not see the sword that threatens thee.
Will Agamemnon fight when he is dead?
No, but his son.
His son shall die with him.
If he be dead, his daughter will revenge.
She shall be kept in prison close enough.
What then?
Then we will revel in our jollity and feast and banquet without control. And you, sweet queen, and I, sweet queen, secure in you, and I, sweet queen, shall live in love.
He embraces her.
So may we too, if Agamemnon live.
But still his life now cause of fear doth give.
But none but trusty servants shall I spy it.
Trust in a court, I utterly denied.
But I will buy their secrecy with gold.
That's worst of all, such faith so bought, so sold. Come, my dear, this is but women's use to fear, where is no cause to fear at all. Let it suffice, Aegisthus loveth thee, when Agamemnon hath disloyal been. If he be dead, then shalt thou happy be, and I enjoy what I so long desired. Come not away, sweet love, but look on him who loveth thee more dearly than his life. Beauteous queen, duty's whole commendation. Trust your experience and mistrust your passion. You know Aegisthus worships and admires the heaven of your face. Those starry fires from thence one favor of your looks impart. Be it but to your image in my part, not to myself, alas, unworthy I. Although my former favor in your sight says you must love me if you judge aright.
The moderation of my former mind is now returned, your talk is all in vain. The moderation of my former mind is now returned, your talk is all in vain. Your filed speeches and flattering eloquence shall not persuade me change my mind again. For why should I that am the princely wife of fair Mycenae's noble emperor favor see base exiled adulterers?
And why should I, Thyestes' noble son, more baser than the son of Atreus seem?
'Twere best you say you are his nephew too.
I am, and of my birth will never be ashamed, for by the will of Phoebus I was born.
And call'st thou Phoebus, author of thy birth, who, when he saw thy father's villainy, veiled his shining face with dusky clouds? Why wouldst thou have the gods partake thy shame? Base-born Aegisthus by unlawful lust. Begone. I say this is no place for thee, but for my loving husband and my king.
I go, for exile is not strange to me, and if thou bid, O queen, dearest dear, I will not only into exile go,
He draweth his dagger.
but send this soul of mine to banishment that hath procured this my dear queen's discontent.
Nay, I delight not in Aegisthus' blood, but come with me and let us counsel take. What means is best to prosper our success?
Both speaks secretly in one another's ear.
Do so. Keep counsel. Leave me to myself.
The dearest drop of blood within my heart I vow to keep, no suffer I depart.
So, what did they whisper to each other? Which way have they fallen? Are they going to do anything murdery? It's like they went in the direction of murderiness and then they pulled back from murderiness. It's all sort of sexy murder time. Following on from this sort of argument with servant type person, who's sort of going, "Hey, your husband, isn't he great?" Go, my husband left me for 10 years. Yeah, but you had a child together. He sacrificed her on an altar. Clytemnestra has a pretty good reason for not being that keen on Agamemnon. In this particular iteration of the story, the versions do vary. We open this sequence with Clytemnestra, talking about her lover Aegisthus, and where does she go from here? I'm fairly certain that here stay basically means pause. It seems to be, and so when Aegisthus enters, he's got this thing of, why are you looking so pale? Why are you looking so afraid? And of course, it's all about, her husband might be coming home and things are not good. She has a lover, and Agamemnon has been doing bad things, and he's coming back with Cassandra, who she feels weirdly threatened by. Which is slightly paranoid, considering terrible things have probably been happening to Cassandra. Thoughts from the room about this? It does feel like we've just entered a totally different story here. It does feel like that opening coda isn't necessarily helping much. Interesting though it was. Rachael, we'll go to you first.
I don't know if it's because they're coming from perhaps the same source material or the same inspiration, but what's the one with Mordred that I really like? That's like the something of Arthur.
Misfortunes of Arthur, yes.
Yeah, that one. This very much seems like the opening scene of that one where Mordred's talking to his stepmom/lover. But there's so much similarness to that, and I wonder if this part does not come before the part where we were seeing him kill his wife, with these two, threading with this cord or something, if this isn't a scene that comes before that, because this would contextualize that scene a lot more as to what his motive was in murdering his wife.
Well, it's that's Atreus. I don't really know how Atreus fits into all of this. Actually, I have to say I get very confused by it all. I should know all this backwards, but I have completely forgotten all of this stuff. I just know the House of Atreus is a bit screwed. That's all I can really remember off the top of my head. We've done Thyestes. We've read it. There's a whole feeding pies thing that went on between Thyestes and Atreus. We were there. It didn't go down well. Literally. So, yeah. But I don't quite know how that's precisely fitting with the next generation, as it were. This Clytemnestra side level of the family. So I don't quite know how it all fits together. Other thoughts in the room about this? We've got a chorus to come before we close the act in a moment. But Greg and Eric, as servant and lover. How are we finding that little exchange? I like Storge is back and forth with Clytemnestra. I thought there was something interesting going on there. Feel free to reply, anyone in the room.
Yeah, it's interesting, sort of, that it's meant to be well, because there's a problem going, well, why would I believe her? I mean, I as an audience member, why would you believe Clytemnestra going, yes, I must be dutiful and so on and so forth? Then also I can see her point, because obviously it's like double standards, which I think would be very like relevant to nowadays, as opposed to back then, where it's like, oh yes, the woman must pay for what she's done. Yeah, but I like how she's kind of anticipating sort of what happens next. So kind of the third generation, which is Electra and Orestes, where she's kind of like, yeah, but he has a son. Yeah, we'll kill him. It's fine. And then,
but there's a daughter as well. We'll lock her up. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that thing of how do you navigate this path? Because, she's taken a lover. Her husband is coming home. Does she throw herself on his mercy, which is sort of, Aegisthus is going, you really want to try and do that? You think that's going to go well? And she's going, she does feel sort of guilty about having an affair, but she also kind of hates her husband. What is the best course of action? Do you go nuclear and kill your husband, or do you try and find a middle ground? And there's also a way that Aegisthus is not a very, high up person, so she's sort of doing him down a bit, and he's going, look, I was born of a noble race as well. And you're going, yeah, but you're just a bit second rate, aren't you? There's a little bit of that going on about Aegisthus. So I like the way these scenes keep tossing back and forth between where do we go? Should we go this direction? Because killing people is hard. Let's not forget that, that's the easy option here. It's not. Rachael.
It also reminds me this scene, the Tragedy of Miriam, that we were reading a little while back. The fear and anticipation of Herod coming home. Yeah,
it's exactly the same situation in that sense. Except in this version, Clytemnestra is having an affair, whereas well, I suppose actually no, in that sense you say Clytemnestra is a bit like Salome in that play, because she wants to change husbands as well. Okay, let's read what the chorus have to say. I'm never usually a fan of the chorus. There's 5 of them. Later on, they may get names or not. But at this stage, they're just chorus 1 through 5. So, choruses, take it away.
For want of contradiction, guiltless Europa dies, for silence may be taken for conviction when accusation eloquently lies. Nor guiltlessness denies, yet are the heavens just. That punished her thus, she dies a death deserved of her lust. The end is just, and the means to us belongs not to discuss. The boredness and the treason her practices in use makes us fly to heaven for a reason, when earth cannot so bad a life excuse. On this death ensues, for causes so may run linked in a secret chain, that justice may be most unjustly done, and so we need not Atreus' deeds maintain, though she were justly slain. Though heaven worketh all, yet is it so forgot, that we regard it when effects so fall, that will no other reason can allot, and else we regard it not.
The maid that took her crime to be so heinous, for strangling of Europa, though unwilling, did kill herself to clear her conscience, and so repenting doubled her offence. As though when false by ignorance do stain us, nothing could wash our hearts but blood and killing. But Clytemnestra makes her fault so light, that she forgets it entering to as greater fires to encompass in a lesser. Aegisthus' love so wholly doth possess her, though she denies him faintly at first, yet thereby she entreats him to entreat her, though Clytemnestra mentioneth the perils and shame that by this love may well ensue. Yet all to Aegisthus she imputed, or doubts that she doth but put to have refuted. This is but childish play, young Cupid's quarrels, hoping to have the game begun anew.
If you would soundly of a thing devise, seek not their counsel, with whom too much beholding necessity to fit your humour ties. For with them to discourse make you resolve the worse. For Clytemnestra can be nothing bettered. Her purposes unto her nurse unfolding, whose tongue with flattery benefits fettered. For erring she may curse, conferring with her nurse.
Nay, that old cunning dance spares her in hand, it may be hidden. Hope of scape from shame, the open way to things forbidden, and her encouragement increaseth Clytemnestra's passion. A scheme that doth consent passeth all devils in temptation. These speeches of the nurse 10,000 times the more provoke her. Who could desire a worse if hell itself would have a broker? He that would make a whole forest of greenest timber burn, lest him but take one road that hath been fired, 'twill serve the turn. So these old scorched queens that are dead coals of Cupid's fire only do serve for means, in youth to kindle hot desire.
And so Aegisthus' trick, used to procure his mistress' love, to die or to be sick, are ways most sure, so hearts to move. They that no kindness have, but can forsake a loving friend from dying with him save, pity will make proud love descend. Yet this odd jest to die, that every lover learns to feign, is but a way to try their power over minds where they reign. He killed himself, base coward. Each blast of wind will make him tremble. He finds by being forward the queen, her mind cannot dissemble. Though Clytemnestra care not, for fear beseemed to him unkind, Yet he should die and spare not. Were but the queen half of the mind, half of my mind. What is this loving life, and what else are days spent in passion, but an agreeing strife, negligent care, blind observation?
And they exit. Some interesting lines in there. And the chorus is weirdly structured. Some really weird movements around of things. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. And it's interesting. We got the call back to Europa dying in that opening of the act, so it is all part of the same unit. It's not. There is some kind of through line going on here. So yeah, Rachael.
I think that whoever wrote this, or whoever what singular person or multiple persons who wrote this, I really do feel that this is some sort of like college, school play or something like that done as a student production, because there's so much of like the part of the chorus that I took, I just played it like I would when we did Skeltonics, that came up. There's such they're experimenting so much with form, and there's some parts of it where it seems to go so right, and then others, not to say that this section anything was done like wrong or that it fell flat, because it was very clear and really clear here in this section, and in some other parts they seem to drift off, like in the same way that you would when you're writing poetry and not trying to communicate the through line of a story.
Other thoughts? Yes, no, Tom?
It just seems to be a bit of, I mean, you're about really. It's a bit of architecture, not architecture. We're sort of like uncovering things and trying to piece it together in a archaeology type of way. But I think it is a broken into pieces, and needs quite studious work to actually see where all the pieces fit.
I'm not quite feeling that myself. I'm not sure what's precisely going on, but I'm not sure that it's not been assembled this way for there does seem to be intent. It just seems to be that we're missing a context to explain why it is structured the way it is. At the moment, there may be more. The more we do, the more we'll get where we are. Especially if this is a part 2. It would all make perfect sense, I think, possibly, that we ended on some kind of cliffhanger, and that we just have leapt into the close of effectively the action of the first half, and this is perhaps the second half. That may be the answer. It may be as simple as that. It may be that the opening is some sort of just thematic, all the stuff with Thyestes, etc., is a thematic opening that is deliberately a bit jarring, and maybe there was an additional prologue that we're missing that just set us up a bit better. And maybe we're working on too little information because we haven't even done a quarter of the play yet. There's a lot more text to go. We'll do the final act of the session, and then we'll go into final thoughts. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Clytemnestra with a wrought shirt.
I long to end this over-tedious work, wherein my needle, like Achilles' spear, serves out the time of Troy's prolonged wares. All this for Agamemnon, all for him, that scorneth me, and every messenger brings no news else, but some new love of his. Rhesus or Croesus, such variety, that he can change his love with every letter, and for his change hazard 10,000 lives. advantage Troy and disadvantage Greece, wrong mighty captains and defame his crown. All this for others, but for Clytemnestra, he doth disdain to hasten his return. Oh, that this shirt with Hydra's venom were besprinkled, or with Nessus' fatal blood, but Agamemnon's blood may prove as good. And if Aegisthus keep his word, it may. But who comes here? Is not Euribates?
Yes, enter Euribates. He kneeleth. Greg?
Sorry, I missed completely that part. Sorry. Ye mighty gods, controllers of this place, who have me safely brought again to Greece after so many labours of the war and passing dangers of the swelling seas, wherein so many Greekish ships distressed are either dashed against the craggy rocks, or scattered and drove another way to see my long-expected country soil, your sacred and eternal deities with praise and thanks, Euribates adores.
And he rises.
Men of Mycenae, pay the gods your vows, and on their altars burn your sacrifice. Your sovereign lord returns with victory.
And turning aside and speaking to herself.
Unhappy news that makes my heart to tremble. O lives he, then it behoveth me to dissemble.
And she cometh towards him.
What happy news is this mine ears do hear? Euribates, the messenger of joy, and only comfort of my careful mind? Where is that long-expected conqueror, my loving husband and my sovereign?
Safely returned with glory and renown, he hither marcheth with his followers.
Then let us sacrifice unto the gods, and give them thanks for this his safe return. But where is Menelaus? Is he come? Where is my loving sister, Helena?
The mighty gods, I hope, will favour us as for to tell you any certainty. The doubtful perils of the dangerous sea are such as I cannot assure them life. For when we had first launched into the deep, one ship could not behold the other's sails. Agamemnon in midst of seas tossed by storms, the tempestuous winds, was more afflicted than he was at Troy, and now returns as he were conquered, bringing a few sea-beaten ships with him.
As he were conquered, oh, that he truly were, conquered and dead, then I were freed of fear, for that myself an Amazon had him. Troy in his death my valor should have seen. Tell me the means by which you lost the rest.
Why should I tell you such a dismal tale? Spilling your mirth with this unhappy news, my mind, alas, oppressed with sudden grief, will not permit me tell what you require.
Nay, tell, my mind to misery prepared, cares not here the utmost of your harms.
When Greeks had burnt the stately town of Troy, and all our forces were returning home, they loaded all the ships with Trojan spoils, and laying by their weapons, took their oars, and still they thought their labours were but small, for when they heard the brazen trumpets sound, one ship among the rest with gilded beak doth lead the way, the rest do after ride, 1,000 ships replete with gladsome joy. The sails with prosperous gales of winds do strout, and milder Zephyrus begins to blow, and on the quiet seas doth safely play. Then might you sow with joy and merry cheer, each one to look upon the shores of Troy, remembering not the griefs and sorrows past. This while the mariners the oars do ply, but when a stronger wind began to rise, their oars they lay aside and take their rest. Some lying down upon the decks do mark how swift their ships do glide from the land. Others begin recount their finished war, telling of noble Hector's valiantness, and of his shameful death, and Priam's fall, whose gory blood the sacred altars dyed, then round about the ships the dolphins play. And tread Levolto in delightsome sort, by this the land was taken out of sight, and naught was seen but Neptune's raging seas, unless it were the smoke of burning Troy. Now Titan had unloosed his weary steeds, and glorious Thebe in her pride appeared amidst the glittering troop of twinkling stars. And as we see a little cloud arise that dim the light of the departing sun, the winds hush, leave to fill our sails, and then again to murmur do begin. Once the craggy rocks and desert hills, and straight the quiet seas begin to swell, and lowest seas with highest heavens do meet.
Alas, my mind presageth some mishap.
The waters roar, the sky with thunder cracks, the winds do fight the waves and tossed on high. So whoso should in that great storm have been, he would have thought the very heavens have fallen. Mighty gods descendeth to the earth, and all things again a chaos be.
Now out, alas, in what did Greeks offend, that they should leave so soon to favor them?
The tide withstands the wind the tide repels, the sea itself scarce can contain, the rain waves a mixture make and meet, no yet, alas, may this vengeance so. For darksome night doth blind their watery eyes, yet light they have, and lightning is that light, such light as 'tis wished for by that crew. What lightning had we their distressed wights, where lightning was our day, tempest our nights.
Now out, alas.
One ship the other, one's ribs, another's ribs, one beak, another's dashed, and of this fleet this ship the seas most greedily devours, and cast it up. That sinks another spoiled of sails, of oars, and other instruments. Hither and thither is drove, and up and down, tilted and tossed through the Ionian Sea. Then counsel of the wise could not prevail, but every good advice by fear was hindered. The only help that to us did remain was for to pray ye gods to pity us. Then both the Trojans and the Grecians were joined in prayer, and all with all one consent made supplications for their safe return. Poor Trojans, that in this necessity begged for themselves a safe captivity.
Were the seas more than before?
No. Their prayers nothing could prevail, for still the rage of tempest did increase. Then who did not the dead as blessed count, who did their life in acts and honour end? We shall, quoth they, unknown in seas be drowned. And then again with hands lift up and high, each one began to say, Almighty gods, if any pity or calamity, let us not perish in our misery. Few the Grecians hate, yet have respect unto the Trojans, our companions. Both we are they together are distressed, no more they say the waters flow so fast.
Did not the tempest cease?
No, they nothing could at all prevail, so great a tempest yet was never seen.
What god was that of the Lucians?
Oh, we saw where angry Pallas threatening stood, armed with the lightning of her father Jove, and with spear or shield or Gorgon's head or father's thunderbolt she could perform, she did perform it to her utmost power. Here, Ajax, with great magnanimity, not caring how this tempest could him hurt, with all his power sought to save his ship, and as he would have pulled down his sails, Pallas at him with a thunderbolt did throw, which being escaped, she did another take and threw at him with thrice redoubled force, which both through him and through the ship did glide.
What then became of this renowned knight?
And with the fire of those flaming darts, he like a rock in the midst of seas did stand, and cut the waves and overcame the seas until unto a rock he doth approach, where taking hold he loudly gan to cry, and thought the seas and fire and palaces were not going to prevail to do him any hurt. Shall I, quoth he, whom neither Hector's force nor Mars nor Phoebus ever yet could quell, nor now fear the threatening of a woman's hand? With that did Neptune overthrow the rock, and Ajax fell again into the deep, unconquered by sea and fire, did die.
What there betided to the other ships?
Over against the straits of the Hellespont, there stands on high hill, Caphareus high, environed with many craggy rocks. To this the sire of Palamedes came, and on the top of burning fire did make, and brought our ships onto that hateful place where all of them almost are perished. And whether Menelaus and his Helena be safely escaped from these dangerous storms, I may not tell you of a certainty.
Shall I with grief this luckless loss bewail, or shall I joy my husband is returned? I do rejoice, yet do I greatly grieve, for this my loving country's bad success.
She kneeleth.
Now, highest Jove, vouchsafe to hear my plaints. Let not the powers of heaven in wrathful ire work the destruction of the Grecians. For this 100 oxen shall be slain, and all with praises shall adorn thy name. But here behold the captive ladies come, with Agamemnon brought from Phrygia.
And yes, we're about to go into the entrance of the captives of Troy, but that we will come back to another time, i.e. next session. We have news. We have news of Agamemnon. We have news from Troy. Clytemnestra brings on stage some work that she's been doing. A shirt. There's nothing sinister about this shirt at all. I'm sure it will have nothing to do with anything that's coming up later on. And we have these lovely stage directions turning to herself. Unhappy news that makes my heart so tremble. Oh, lives he then, it behoveth me to dissemble. So we have asides going on, it gives us all sorts of questions about Clytemnestra's responses and actually how they're played or what's going on under the surface. Now, out alas, how sad is she? She's clearly going to be sad about, Grecian failure. But is she happy that her husband? Where is she placed throughout this? And there's all sorts of things pushing back and forth. Rachael.
I think you could play it. She's waiting with bated breath at every word he's saying to hear that Agamemnon's dead. And it looks like very worried, like she's wringing things like in distress, but she wants to hear that he's dead. And so, I do think she's worried for the actual people, who's everyone else, and she doesn't want to hear their deaths. She just wants to hear if her husband's dead or not. Maybe in this section, I think you're relying on, I guess, the convention of the drama of this genre of drama, the neoclassical, that the worst is the last hit, that, next he's going to say Agamemnon. But no, he just walks in the door with all his mistresses, and she's more upset about that.
Yes, because this is this long, complicated story, and it's like, get to the point. Tell me what I want to know. Other thoughts before we start drifting towards final thoughts? I feel on much more firmer ground at the moment. It's straightforward. Clytemnestra, Agamemnon, murdery stuff. I don't think that's a spoiler. I think it's been discussed enough in the text for that to be well set up now. Euribates comes in to tell a dreadful, dismal tale. Eric.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's it is like in Misfortunes of Arthur, where we had more so it's a family affair, but it's also public and sort of political at the same time. So like if he does something to her or she does something to him, like that's why in the previous scene we had the whole what's going to happen if you kill it, or a few scenes ago, I don't know, where there was that whole interrogation of like what you think Greece is not going to react if you kill one of the strongest kings in the countries. I mean it wasn't a unified country, but I mean it didn't matter to them.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts about the scene we've just done, Act 2, opening of? Otherwise, I'm going to go around the room for final thoughts on the play so far. Greg, any final thoughts?
Yeah, really interesting play. It's grown on me, I think, really, from actually that last scene. Euribates was a really interesting character to sort of get your teeth into, because actually his descriptions of the ships coming home, and especially Ajax's death, were fabulous. But Atreus was great fun too, let's be honest.
Yeah, a bit murdery, though.
Yeah, well,
they're all a bit murdery.
I was going to say, this is the house of Tantalus. This is the backbone of a lot of Greek tragedy. Oh dear, did they get in trouble? And actually, though I know it very well, I'd forgotten that Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra were sisters, born of eggs, in fact.
Yeah.
And you just suddenly go, oh my God, yes, the two great female protagonists, almost that story, very closely related. But yes, no, good, like it.
Tom, any final thoughts?
No, I mean it's lovely knitting. It's tight, and as you say, it's you're starting to get interested. You start to see how it unfolds, and it has all of that tension that there's no place to go, there's no place to hide. You live your life in the massive goldfish bowl of the court, and you can't go anywhere. And so as I say, there's no place to go, there's no place to hide, and so you have to await your fate. So the hours can seem like purgatory type of thing. So unfolding nicely.
Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting what it's been doing with the myths and stuff, because I mean, okay, I'm a bit of a myth person, but I mean, yeah, it's hitting all the right notes, I guess, and sort of, I was trying to figure out what the function of those initial scenes with Atreus and Europa was. Yes, okay. Yeah, I was thinking maybe that's like their attempt at foreshadowing. If there isn't a first part, and this is just second, like sort of their sort of combo mix of Greek tragedy, then those first bits are basically foreshadowing for what's going to happen to Clytemnestra and Aegisthus, because otherwise it wouldn't serve a function in the play to sort of show how cruel, I guess, that line can be. I mean, Atreus and his line, and Agamemnon, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been going back to Hipparchus's opening speech, which does explain all of the motivations, but because we were tuning into what the hell's going on, we sort of didn't really get it, as it were, which is, it's a bit of an issue with the opening lines of the play. But, Atreus, he's haunted by his brother's ghost. He thinks the ghost is coming back because it loves Europa, or Europa loves him. So he's going, brother, who I have issues with because of the whole stuff that went down before. So yeah, that's the reason. That's the motivation for Atreus is it's a score settling thing, but we go through the witch thing, and so it does sort of make sense narratively. It doesn't have to be the second part of a two-part thing, even if it feels abrupt. There is enough here, but you've just got to get it into people's heads that it's there. So I'm really torn as to whether this is just a single unit play that just is perhaps a bit a bit weird as its opening gambit, or the second part of the thing. I'm genuinely torn with the two possible options here. Rachael, any final thoughts?
There's so many scenes in this that it feels like they've taken so much inspiration from other people. I really liked the last scene that we were doing because that seemed very different. Also at the beginning, the one scene with Atreus, I don't know, I would like to come back to this, even though we're at the very beginning of it, after we've finished it for like a second look, just because the first scene, I was having a hard time placing what the characterization was going to be for these people, even though, we do semi know them coming from, or at least I only semi know them from Greek mythology or Greek stories, or from some of the other plays that we visited these people in. But then as we went on, I felt like the characterization became a lot stronger and they had more individual voices. And then the last scene, there's a growing subtext underneath a lot of what is happening. And it seems just very different from the first moments that were coming into this play. It's just, I don't know, not in tone, but like in there's I don't know, there's just something weird for me about the first scene because I really wasn't understanding where we were.
I think it doesn't help we didn't have the ghost. You don't see the ghost at the beginning. They're all reacting to a ghost, and it's in the stage directions. But it's not like the ghost has come on and made a speech at the very, very beginning. He doesn't make a speech until after, and the ghost effectively bridges into the next sequence. So it's a bit jarring. But if that opening bit with Hipparchus is actually everyone's going, there's a ghost, it sort of makes a lot more sense. And especially if we did this immediately after doing Thyestes, based on the Seneca. Because you're right, there's a sort of mega mix, I don't know if someone put that in the chat, quality to this. I mean, I think it's explicitly borrowing from Sophocles. Certainly later on. I don't think it is at this point. I don't know where it's borrowing from at this point. I don't recall this bit in dramatic literature from Greek drama. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I did Greek drama, but I do not remember that opening sequence dramatically anywhere. But as I say, it's been a while. And that's one for research from last time. Sorry, I cut you off, Rachael, because I wanted to step in. Not actually a very good reason. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, just I don't know. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. There's some stuff in here that I don't know. I might just be nitpicking at just because I'm not picking up on some things, and in other places because we've read similar stuff that I'm seeing that come out so much in it that I'm not approaching it for what it is itself and appreciating it from that perspective.
And I think next time we're on much surer ground now. We've got a pretty good lineup here. We've got victims of Troy being brought on. We've got a lead up to Agamemnon coming to a sticky end. And also in sessions after next session, we will have a continuation of that story, following a much more an Electra arc, which we will start noticing, I think, direct parallels with Greek drama that, to the point of just going, oh, this bit looks familiar. But I could be projecting. I could be wrong on that point. Any final thoughts anyone wants to throw in before I close the session? No. Well, that's it for the moment for Pelopidarum secunda. We will return for a secunda time. Anon, all that remains is to thank all these wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. See, she doth laugh you both to scorn.